Good morning, good afternoon, hello, how are you? Welcome to another Kniche installment. This time we are looking at operations and in particular the subtopic of strategies. This one we'll be looking at change. Now change is something that's going to occur within all businesses, whether it be the most successful or those that are struggling, and it's how businesses really adapt to change that differentiates them between each other. Now you have to excuse the headphone here. My inbuilt one isn't working, so I'm having to use the old iPhone one. All right, what is change? Change occurs to a business either internally or from external. Okay, so factors that are internal or external that are forcing the business to change. This can come from many different factors. Legislative and regulatory changes pertain to those that are set down by the government, so in the external environment. Now, an example of that is the carbon tax, which was initiated 2 or 3 years ago, whereby businesses were being charged for essentially their pollution. Now, businesses had to adapt to this by making cost savings in other areas, and if they didn't, they were just increasing their expenses, especially during that operations phase of it. Changes in economic conditions are another external factor that will force change within a business. Here we have the economic cycle. The economic cycle pertains to the peaks, troughs, recession, depression, booms, upturns, downturns, whatever you want to call it. It's the cyclical nature of economies, whereby people are looking to spend more, save more, unemployment rises, unemployment falls. A business needs to adapt to this by making sure that they're operating in the environment that they're currently being given from that external. We've got technological breakthroughs. So here we have a old invoice. So that would have been handwritten, time consuming. It would have had to have been stored somewhere. As you can see now, it's all done electronically. So there's efficiencies that have been created just by technological breakthroughs. And if businesses haven't adapted to that, they're really going to struggle. Once again, they're not going to create those efficiencies and economies of scale by utilizing technology that is there to help them in their operations section. Social changes over time is another big one. This one here, an example I've got, is the prominence of females now within the workforce, and especially the prominence of females within management positions. And if businesses aren't adapting to that, once again, they're really going to be slow and not really leveraging the environment to what they should be. Now, change can also come from within the business. This is a lot to do with staff and is looked more heavily involved in the HR subtopic or topic, sorry. So we'll be looking at the application of technology and a focus on innovation for that one. So one thing I hear you asking at home there is, sir, why would businesses be resistant to change? I'm going to tell you, because that's the kind of guy I am. Now, a big thing about internal and external environment is that it's going to throw up situations that a business needs to deal with. If businesses aren't dealing with what the environment is giving them or what they're creating within their own environment, then they're not going to be adapting, and they're going to lose their competitive advantage over time. There's many instances of that, and one of these is Kodak, which we will look at soon. But the big thing about not wanting to change, a lot of the time it's to do with the financial costs of it. Now, finance is a hard one because sometimes the capital outlay, or for plant and machinery, is going to be large. So short-term costs are going to be massive in order to sometimes overcome a problem or something changing in that environment. But this is a short-term cost. It will affect liquidity, yes. However, in the long run, they're going to be creating efficiencies and they're going to be creating economies of scale. Well, that is the ultimate anyway. And long-term, then, solvency shouldn't be an issue. The main financial costs associated with change include the cost of purchasing new equipment. So, for example, when digital cameras started to become prominent within the photography market, many businesses were left behind because they were stuck with huge costs involved with printing old film canisters. The cost to adapt to the change within the environment, which was a move towards digital, was going to be a huge cost for them. Some thought that it wouldn't last, so they resisted the new move towards digital, stayed with their old film, and ended up failing. Okay, they didn't adapt. They didn't outlay those short-term costs in order to adapt to that environment. The cost of redundancies. Now, redundancy is someone who loses their job or gets laid off because their skills are no longer necessary or the job is no longer needed. So the word there is obsolete. That's a cost as well, because sometimes the business will have to pay out their contract or even move them sideways. There's costs of retraining employees. So once again, if new technology does come in, then employee skills which were valued are now obsolete. So they're going to have to retrain. Training costs a lot, affects the short term, affects liquidity. However, the idea is obviously creating efficiencies. It's all about the long-term view on that one. And there's also costs associated with structural reorganization of the business. And this includes changes to plant and equipment. Now, you can see here a couple of examples. This is my redundancy example. The people who used to do the stunt work and dressing up in their clothes and whatever it might be, costumes, sorry, are being replaced now by CGI, which is the animation. You have here people that are retraining, so they're trying to always upskill. And the big one here is in the car industry, where there was huge changes in technology in the last 20, 30, 40 years, where it used to be humans that were manning the production line. Now it is robots. So one way that companies have dealt with that is, for example, with the robots, is although these would have all been humans before, up and down each line, you'd say that maybe all those jobs have been lost. However, one way that businesses have adapted to that is actually just changing the way that humans are used. So that's through retraining, because somebody has to perform maintenance on those machines, has to do the computer work for it, has to come and fix problems associated with it. So there is way to overcome change. So it's overcoming that resistance to change, which is the big thing that businesses need to do. Now, as well as resistance to change because of financial pressures or financial costs, management sometimes doesn't want to change because there's a psychological resistance. It's got a name. It's called inertia. Say it again. Inertia. Sounds smart, hey? Now, inertia is a term that describes that psychological resistance. Some people do not like change. It is frightening. It is scary. There's a feeling of uncertainty. Sometimes there's fear, especially when it's imminent. So when it means that it's going to happen, it can lead to people resisting. It's not a financial resistance, but when people don't adapt, so when they don't want to change and when management doesn't handle that change well, then the business will feel a financial effect, because people will be working to rule. They won't be fulfilling their job. They will be, there could be then, once again, in the HR topic, we look at this, industrial disputes or workplace disputes. So the psychological resistance is huge. Management needs to overcome that by instituting it slowly, using change agents, but that's something we'll look at in a bit more depth. So we've got our financial pressures. Financial pressures and overcoming the resistance to the financial costs. We've got our psychological, so people don't want to change. People hate it. Most people anyway. So management has to come up with change management strategies, which is what we're looking at here. Now, to be constructive, changes they must occur at a pace at which they can be absorbed and integrated into the business. There's no use throwing huge changes upon people and asking them to respond to that. It needs to occur over a period of time to be most effective. It needs to be evaluated thoroughly to assess the overall impact. So making change isn't always a good thing. It's how it's done and why it's being done, and is it linked to achieving the overall goals of a business, so that strategic direction of a business. Now, poorly managed changes result in employee resistance, which can lead to workplace disputes, tension, ultimately lost productivity. You're paying the same costs, but you're not achieving the same out of those people. Now, it must be introduced into a workplace culture that supports employee participation. That links closely with the leadership style of behavioral. Okay, so it encourages employee participation. It's not forced upon them. Now, here's a little joke here. So you can see profits are going down, sales are going down. What if we don't change at all and something magical just happens? So that there is inertia in its most. In addition to the strategies that businesses use to overcome change, the use of change agents was something that I mentioned before. Now, change agents are those staff who hold a lot of sway within a business. They're influential, and if management can get these people on side, that will help sway the rest of the staff in order to look at the changes and maybe institute them. It creates a culture of change. It helps with setting goals, and businesses will be employees will be generally more supportive. One thing I want you to look at is the change models that businesses can use. Now, an example of this is Kurt Lewin's unfreeze, change, refreeze model, or the more contemporary Kotter's 8-step change model. I want you to look at that yourself because they're quite in depth. So you'll see page 111 of text for more information on that one. I hope you've enjoyed. Change is a huge factor. We move on to the global factors next. Thank you for visiting my house on this fine weekend. It's beautiful, isn't it? Have a good day. Peace out. Kniche.